So people are being fooled. And unfortunately, that is the way documentaries are made these days. And probably people would accuse documentaries on the other side of being the same, but there aren't very many of those. There aren't very many pro-meat documentaries right now, or pro-farming, for instance. There's a new one out. I guess you may or may not have it on your radar, but it's the one about the blue zones, which is Dan Buettner, I think is how I say his name. And it's on Netflix, and it's very popular. And it's plant-based with a disguise, right? Because they're looking at people who live a long time, till 100, in particular parts of the world, and they're trying to look at what they have in common. And of course, there are loads of things that they have in common. Sunshine for one, community for another, local food, etc., etc. The thing that this documentary finally hones in on is they eat plant-based food, mostly plant-based. So now we're dealing with another angle that they're throwing, which is to live a long time. The evidence says eat plant-based. Well, the evidence doesn't say that, because if you actually go to the blue zones and you look at what they're eating, it certainly is not a plant-based diet. They have goats on spits, lambs on spits. This is their treat every Sunday, to have a huge animal rotating and everybody digs in. If you've ever gone to Spain, Italy, Croatia, and tried to get a whole grain rice or bread, you just won't find it. It's white bread all the way, right? Beautiful, crusty, white French bread, or ciabatta, or whatever. So this whole Blue Zones plant-based diet thing is completely fabricated, but it's a lovely idea, right? It's very simple. People love it. I saw Goldie Hawn promoting it the other day, and I thought, oh God, we're really sunk now if Goldie Hawn is promoting the Blue Zones movie, because it's such a lovely thing to think. So you're right that these things are constantly coming out, and we just have to keep on going. Keep on questioning them.
You mentioned Dan there. He's actually been on the show a couple times.
Has he?
And one thing I'm careful to do with this show is not get pigeonholed and closed-minded and just bring on guests of one philosophy when it comes to diet and lifestyle. So, and I'll continue to do that. It's important to me to pull pieces from everybody. And I think, even somebody like Dan, who I don't fully stand behind everything his message states, there's still value there, and it keeps an open dialogue and keeps us thinking critically and brings all the information forth in a way that people can make their own decisions.
Yeah. Well, I think that's laudable, and that's great. You should be hosting a variety of views, and at the same time, people should be able to state their very strong view. So I guess, and then people can judge.
You stated something there when it came to the blue zones, the fact that the data itself isn't accurate because they are actually having meat there. And secondarily, the fact that there's more variables than just the diet, and that seems to be a big piece, at least, of what gets honed in on. So
absolutely. To
me, there's two different levels to that. And the fact that you don't see that Blue Zone's data critiqued very often, and it's just accepted. When you put it the way you did there, it's interesting.
Yeah, and there's another layer. You like layers, so I'm going to give you a third layer on the blue zones, which is the data about the centarians is also corrupted. So a couple of analyses have been done showing that they actually miscounted the number of centarians because of the records that they were keeping, and that there weren't as many in certain places as they previously thought. So it may not be that living in a certain way in Croatia or southern Italy actually leads more people to live to 100. So the data is quite corrupt at many levels, but as you say, it's a nice story, and there's some good elements to it. And I certainly think that there are some elements of blue zone countries, particularly around the Mediterranean, that we need to be emulating. For instance, they they really do eat much less processed food than we do. So they've got a whole food diet. The rate of processed food consumption, I think, is about 55% of our calories in the UK. It's about 60% of US calories are ultra processed food. In France and Italy, it's like 15%. So that alone might explain some of the health benefits and the longevity benefits that we're seeing in those countries.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
The fact that they have these three legs, the health, the environment, and ethics, makes for this, what I sometimes refer to that as a three-legged stool. It's pretty hard to kick over a three-legged stool. If you take one of those legs out, you can kick it over pretty quickly. But the three